This is the story of a piece of cloth.
Turin, Italy, June 21st, 2015. The leader of the Roman Catholic Church, Pope Francis, prays before a 14-foot-long ancient linen cloth. Christian holy relic is referred to as the Shroud of Turin.
The Shroud of Turin is this amazing relic. At bottom, it's a piece of cloth.
From the halls of academia to the corridors of the Vatican, the Shroud of Turin continues to inspire both debate and devotion. Is it a holy relic or an elaborate fake? While skeptics dismiss it, believers hold it as the only physical trace of Jesus on earth. But now, groundbreaking evidence has emerged that could redefine everything we know about this enigmatic artifact and the man it is said to depict. Can modern technology finally unlock the truth behind its origins and authenticity? We are Jesus' eternal aura. In today's video, you will have appropriate answers to all the questions above. Before you know what happened, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and click the bell icon for all the latest updates of history.
On findings being published in a new book out today on the Shroud of Turin. That's the linen cloth believed to bear Jesus' imprint as he was being prepared.
The Shroud of Turin, also known as the Holy Shroud, holds a revered place in the hearts of many, particularly within the Catholic Church. Believed to be the very cloth that enveloped Jesus after his crucifixion, it carries an image that captivates the imagination. This remarkable piece of fabric spans about 14 feet in length and 3 feet in width, crafted through a special weaving technique using flax fibers. Of utmost fascination is the faint yet distinct image imprinted on the cloth, portraying a man facing both front and back, with his hands delicately crossed over his lower torso. These mirrored images align along the center of the cloth, each facing in opposite directions, capturing the essence of mystery. The figure depicted possesses a commanding presence, with a beard, mustache, and hair cascading down his shoulders, evoking a sense of strength and stature. Notably, the image bears traces of reddish-brown marks that correspond to the wounds described in biblical accounts of Jesus' crucifixion, further deepening the enigma surrounding the shroud. Experts have pondered over the figure's height, estimating it to be between 5'7" and 6'2", adding another layer of intrigue to this ancient relic. In 1532, a devastating fire erupted within a chapel in Chambéry, France, where the revered shroud was housed. The intense flames seared the fabric, leaving behind gaping holes and charred edges, casualties of its encounter with molten silver during the inferno's fury. To mend these wounds, skilled nuns of the Poor Clare order meticulously stitched 14 sizable triangular patches, along with 8 smaller ones, onto the cloth, a labor of love to preserve its sanctity. Then, in the spring of 1898, an Italian photographer named Secondo Pia received a rare opportunity to capture images of the shroud. This historic event marked the first time the relic had been photographed, unveiling an intriguing revelation. The human likeness imprinted on the cloth emerged with startling clarity in the black and white negative, surpassing its visibility in its natural sepia hue. This discovery continues to hold significance, offering invaluable insights into the intricacies of the shroud and its enduring enigma. Subsequently, in 1931, photographer Giuseppe Enri embarked on a similar endeavor, capturing photographic evidence that echoed Pia's findings. Further advancements came in 1978, as ultraviolet photography shed new light on the relic, deepening our understanding of this mysterious and sacred artifact. Delving deeper into its mysteries, the Shroud of Turin, displayed in a church in north-central France, has long captivated believers and skeptics alike. This ancient relic is thought by many to be the burial cloth of Jesus Christ, enveloping him after his crucifixion. The shroud's most astonishing feature is the faint yet distinct image of a man, infused with three-dimensional details unmatched by conventional paintings, which emerges when viewed in photographic negatives. A significant discovery was made in 2022 during meticulous conservation efforts in Italy. By removing the 16th century cloth backing, researchers uncovered a unique stitching pattern on the shroud's reverse. This pattern is similar to one found only at Masada Fortress in Israel, hinting at a connection to antiquity that supports the shroud's narrative intertwining with the era of Jesus' earthly existence. Exploring the tale woven within the Shroud of Turin, we uncover intense moments etched into its sacred fibers, the agony of Christ in the harrowing events leading to his ultimate sacrifice. Jesus endured relentless cruelty and torment, each excruciating detail imprinted on the shroud. Stripped of dignity and subjected to merciless beatings, the blows from flails tipped with both blunt and sharp edges tore into his flesh, leaving his body battered and covered in scars. To compound his suffering, soldiers fashioned a crude crown of thorns and pressed it onto his brow. Each thorn caused fresh agony, mingling with his blood and staining his garments. Forced to bear the weight of the cross, Jesus' blood-stained clothing clung to his torn flesh as he embarked on a painful journey. Each step was a battle against pain and exhaustion, the cross digging into his shoulders, worsening the wounds inflicted by scourging. As he stumbled, the weight of the cross bore down upon him, crushing his chest against the earth. His arm, twisted unnaturally, was wrenched from its socket, while the cross pressed into his neck and shoulders, partially paralyzing him. The soldiers, with callous indifference, yanked him up by his dislocated arm, compelling him to continue. Bent over in pain, his right arm hung limp, an indication of his suffering and resilience amidst unimaginable torment. Each mark on his body told a tale of unparalleled sacrifice, each wound a testament to the depth of his love and the magnitude of his suffering. His garments, drenched in blood, were torn away without mercy, reopening wounds that had begun to adhere to the fabric. Helplessly thrust upon the cross, the soldiers proceeded to hammer nails into his already twisted and dislocated arm, causing unbearable agony as nerves and ligaments were torn apart. In his final moments on the cross, Jesus endured immense suffering. Nails pierced his hands and feet, binding him to the wooden beams. Each breath was a struggle, the weight of his body making it difficult to fill his lungs. With every heartbeat, pain radiated from his wounds. His parched lips whispered prayers mingled with cries of anguish. As hours passed, his strength waned and the pain intensified. Every movement sent waves of torment through his body, the weight of humanity's sins pressing down upon him, a burden he willingly bore. Amid his suffering, Jesus cried out, a raw and anguished plea that echoed through the heavens. It was a cry of pain and longing. In that moment, he surrendered to death. After Jesus' passing, Joseph of Arimathea made a courageous move, teaming up with Nicodemus, another secret admirer of Jesus. Joseph approached the Roman governor Pilate to request permission to care for Jesus' body according to Jewish customs. With Pilate's approval, Joseph and Nicodemus meticulously wrapped Jesus' body in linen strips infused with myrrh and aloe. Time was of the essence as they worked tirelessly on the eve of the Sabbath. Racing against time, they hurriedly laid Jesus in a tomb Joseph had bought, situated in a nearby garden close to the site of the crucifixion, as recounted in the Gospel of John. After Jesus' resurrection, Simon Peter entered the tomb and discovered the shroud, along with a napkin that had covered Jesus' head. Interestingly, the napkin remained separate from the shroud, providing a touching detail in the narrative of Jesus' burial and resurrection. For decades, scientists have debated how the mysterious image on the shroud could have formed. Some theorize it was caused by radiation, a form of invisible energy that can change materials. Russian scientist Alexander Belyakov suggested the image might have formed when the cloth was quickly exposed to a very bright light. Others propose that special kinds of radiation, such as X-rays or ultraviolet rays, could have created the image. They all agree that whatever the radiation was, it came from above the cloth. Italian researcher Paolo Di Lazzaro has intriguing ideas. He believes the radiation, which he thinks was ultraviolet light, was even stronger than any ultraviolet light we have today. He argues it would have required very quick bursts of light, faster than the blink of an eye, and super powerful, like billions of watts. Imagine a burst of light so fast and strong it could imprint an image on cloth that lasts for centuries. De Lazzaro believes that because we don't have the technology today to create an image like the one on the shroud, it couldn't have been faked in medieval times. For those who believe in the shroud's sacredness, the explanation is simple. Whatever caused the image, whether radiation, ultraviolet light, or something else, came from beyond our world. To Christians, it's clear that the radiation was divine light linked to Jesus' ascension to heaven. Alberto Carpentieri, a professor at the Turin Polytechnic Institute, has proposed that the image might have been caused by nuclear emissions resulting from a massive earthquake believed to have struck Jerusalem in 33 AD. The Shroud of Turin continues to be a subject of fascination and debate. Modern technology and scientific inquiry may yet unlock more of its secrets, deepening our understanding of this enigmatic relic that has inspired faith and curiosity for centuries. What adds intrigue to this theory is that the Gospels indeed mention a significant earthquake following the crucifixion of Christ, adding weight to Carpentieri's hypothesis. According to Carpentieri's study, neutron emissions generated by the earthquake could have been responsible for creating the image on the shroud. These emissions might have also interfered with the levels of radiocarbon, which were subsequently used to date the shroud inaccurately. Carpentieri argues that these emitted neutrons might have interacted with nitrogen atoms in the linen cloth, initiating a chemical reaction that resulted in the formation of the face image on the shroud. Moreover, this interaction could have skewed the results of the carbon dating process. The controversy of the shroud's age intensified in the 1980s when the Vatican took control of the shroud and initiated a series of tests to unravel its mysteries regarding its composition, origin, and age. Among these tests was carbon-14 dating, conducted at the University of Oxford, the University of Arizona, and the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. Remarkably, all three tests, with a 95% confidence level, concluded that the fabric originated between 1260 and 1390 AD. This places the shroud's creation over 1,000 years after Jesus Christ's death. To strengthen their findings, researchers highlighted that the radiocarbon dating aligns closely with historical records of the shroud's first documented appearance in 1353, attributed to Geoffroy de Charny, who purportedly brought the artifact to Lire. However, many scholars have raised doubts about the accuracy of the carbon dating conducted on the Shroud of Turin. One prominent chemist, Raymond Rogers, highlighted significant discrepancies in the results. He discovered that while the edges of the shroud contained 37% vanillin, an organic compound expected to break down over time, the body of the shroud contained 0%. This absence of vanillin in the main part of the shroud suggests that it could be much older than the carbon dating indicates. Rogers argued that if samples were taken from the center of the shroud, the dating would likely reveal an older age than what was officially reported. Moreover, he pointed out that the inability to detect vanillin in the lignin of the shroud fibers, as seen in other ancient linens, like those from the Dead Sea Scrolls, suggests an older age for the shroud. Based on the vanillin loss, Rogers estimated that the shroud could be anywhere between 300 and 3,000 years old, further casting doubt on the accuracy of the carbon dating results. In 2011, a team led by Salvatore Lorusso from the University of Bologna conducted a fascinating study on the Shroud of Turin. They used advanced digital image processing on 2 photographs of the shroud, including a famous negative taken by Giuseppe Enri in 1931. Despite their thorough analysis, they didn't find any images of flowers, coins, or other objects on the shroud. Fast forward to 2015, when another intriguing study emerged. This time, Italian researcher Gianni Barcaccia and his team published their findings in scientific reports. They investigated DNA samples collected from the shroud and its backing cloth during vacuuming sessions in 1977 and 1988. Their research revealed traces of DNA from 19 different types of plants. These plants hailed from diverse regions, including the Mediterranean, Central Europe, North Africa, the Middle East, Eastern Asia, and the Americas. The study didn't stop at plant DNA. They also discovered human mitochondrial DNA sequences, corresponding to various ethnic groups and geographic regions such as Europe, North and East Africa, the Middle East, and India. Additionally, they found DNA from non-human sources, including various birds and even a marine worm typically found in the northern Pacific Ocean near Canada. These findings provided a global snapshot of the diverse biological materials that had come into contact with the shroud over the centuries, adding another layer of mystery to its already puzzling history. After carefully analyzing the DNA of pollen and dust collected from the Shroud of Turin, researchers made an exciting discovery. The DNA showed that many different people from various parts of the world had come into contact with the shroud over the centuries. The scientists explained that this diverse mix of DNA doesn't rule out the possibility that the shroud originated in medieval Europe. In fact, it aligns well with the historical journey the shroud is believed to have taken, possibly starting in the Near East. What's even more fascinating is that the results hint at an intriguing possibility. The linen cloth might have been made in India. This new information adds another layer to the shroud's storied past, suggesting that its origins and travels were even more complex and far-reaching than previously thought. While many researchers have praised the image on the Shroud of Turin as anatomically perfect, others argue it might be a clever forgery. In 2007, archaeologists found a crucified Roman near Venice whose heel wounds matched those on another known victim, but didn't match the wounds shown on the shroud. Furthermore, no known crucifixion victims show evidence of wrist wounds, which the shroud depicts. Critics like Joe Nickel in 1983 and Gregory S. Paul in 2010 have pointed out that the proportions of the image are not realistic. Paul argued that the face and body proportions on the shroud are impossible for a real person. He noted that the forehead is too small, the arms are unnaturally long and uneven in length, and the distance from the eyebrows to the top of the head is incorrect. These features, they suggested, are more consistent with the work of a Gothic artist than with a real human body. In 2018, researchers conducted an experimental blood stain pattern analysis, BPA, to understand how blood flows from the wounds of a crucified person, and to compare these patterns to those on the Shroud of Turin. Their findings were quite revealing. They discovered that the blood patterns on the forearms and the back of the hand did not match up, indicating that these blood flows must have happened at different times due to a specific sequence of movements. Furthermore, the blood rivulets on the front of the image did not align with the lines on the lower back, even considering multiple bleeding events at different times. These inconsistencies suggest that the blood stains on the shroud are not what one would expect from a genuine burial cloth. Instead, they point to the likelihood that the shroud is an artistic or instructional representation rather than an authentic relic. The mismatched blood patterns imply that the image was carefully created to convey a certain narrative rather than naturally formed by the wounds of a crucified body. Raymond E. Brown also observed that a body in the relaxed position depicted on the shroud couldn't naturally position its hands to cover its genitals, as shown. It appears that the right arm and hand were elongated to make this possible. This combination of anatomical inconsistencies leads some experts to believe that the shroud may not be the genuine burial cloth of a crucified person, but rather an artistic creation from the Gothic period. Luigi Garlascelli, a professor of organic chemistry at the University of Pavia, claimed he recreated a full-sized version of the Shroud of Turin using only techniques available in medieval times. He started by laying a linen sheet over a volunteer and rubbing it with an acidic pigment. After this, he aged the shroud in an oven and then washed it to remove the pigment. To further mimic the original, he added blood stains, scorches, and water stains. Professor Giulio Fanti remarked that Garlascelli's method seemed unable to produce an image with the most critical characteristics of the Turin shroud. Nonetheless, Garlascelli's reproduction was featured in a National Geographic documentary. His technique included using a bas-relief method for the face, resulting in an image that looked similar to the Turin shroud but lacked the original's uniformity and intricate details. Scientists Emily Craig and Randall Bray have explored how medieval artists might have created the Shroud of Turin by using a dust transfer technique. They started by drawing a face resembling Jesus on a piece of newsprint using carbon dust mixed with collagen, mimicking the materials and methods available in the 13th and 14th centuries. Once the drawing was complete, they placed it on a table and covered it with a piece of linen. To transfer the image, they pressed the linen firmly against the newsprint using the flat side of a wooden spoon. This process resulted in a reddish-brown image on the linen that looked remarkably lifelike. The image had a three-dimensional quality and showed no signs of brush strokes, making it appear as if it could have been a genuine imprint of a person. Their experiment demonstrated that it was possible to create a convincing and detailed likeness using techniques that would have been accessible in medieval times. The Shroud of Turin continues to be a subject of fascination and debate. Modern technology and scientific inquiry may yet unlock more of its secrets, deepening our understanding of this enigmatic relic that has inspired faith and curiosity for centuries. The authenticity of the Shroud of Turin has been a topic of debate and intrigue for centuries, blending scientific inquiry with religious belief and historical context. This cloth, purported to be the burial shroud of Jesus Christ, bears a faint image of a man who appears to have suffered wounds consistent with crucifixion, aligning with descriptions of Jesus' passion in the New Testament. From a historical perspective, the shroud first surfaced in medieval Europe and has since been housed in Turin, Italy, hence its name. Its exact origins remain unclear, but its significance as a relic stems from its supposed association with Jesus' burial. According to Christian tradition, the shroud is believed to have wrapped the body of Jesus after his crucifixion and before his resurrection. Scientific investigations into the shroud have intensified over recent decades, using techniques ranging from carbon dating to detailed examination of the image itself. One of the most striking features of the shroud is the faint ghost-like image of a man with wounds consistent with crucifixion, marks on the wrists and feet, as well as a wound on the side. The image itself is not painted or dyed onto the cloth surface, but appears to be an imprint that some argue could be the result of a burst of radiation or light. Despite its veneration and the compelling nature of the image, the shroud has faced significant scrutiny and skepticism. The carbon dating conducted in 1988 suggested a medieval origin, leading some to dismiss it as a forgery from that period. However, subsequent challenges have been raised regarding the reliability of the samples taken for dating, including possible contamination from handling over the centuries. Proponents of the shroud's authenticity point to several points of alignment with the gospel accounts of Jesus' crucifixion and burial. These include the presence of a cloth tied around the head, which aligns with Jewish burial customs of the time. The wounds depicted on the shroud correspond closely to the injuries described in the Gospels, such as the crown of thorns and the wound in the side. Moreover, the shroud's depiction of a man who was not washed before burial finds support in historical Jewish burial practices, which allowed for exceptions in cases of state execution. Critics argue that the scientific evidence, particularly the carbon dating, suggests a medieval origin inconsistent with Jesus' lifetime. They also point out anomalies, such as the lack of pollen from Jerusalem found on the cloth, which would be expected if it had been used in that region. Furthermore, the exact method by which the image was formed remains speculative, with no definitive explanation satisfying all observers. The debate over the shroud extends beyond scientific inquiry into matters of faith and interpretation. For believers, the shroud is a tangible connection to the life and death of Jesus, reinforcing spiritual beliefs and providing a visual link to historical accounts. Skeptics, however, caution against attributing supernatural origins to phenomena that can be explained through natural processes or human intervention. In conclusion, the Shroud of Turin remains an enigma that continues to fascinate scholars, scientists, and believers alike. Its authenticity as the burial cloth of Jesus Christ remains uncertain and contested, with evidence both supporting and challenging its origins. Whether one views it as a sacred relic or a medieval artifact, the shroud's enduring presence underscores its profound impact on faith and historical inquiry, inviting ongoing exploration and debate into the mysteries of Christianity's most sacred events.